Hello and welcome back to Wins of the Week, episode 3 now. January's flying by. My name is David Hallett. I'm founder and CEO of Vernova Energy, and we bring you Wins of the Week every Monday to try and ensure you are connected with the ongoings and the happenings within the renewable sector, specifically offshore, onshore wind and solar in the European region. Now, it's January, as I said before, it's a quiet time of the year. There's not a lot going on from the UNEP side of things, which is correct. But we've still got a few bits and pieces to talk about, including recapping on the blade situation that we discussed last week, because there have been some developments in that area. So we're going to jump straight into that now and look at those developments in the blade sector. So this is linking to the GE Vernova issues on the blades at Vineyard Wind. So in the middle of last year, there was failures with a blade there, and the construction had issues around it because of that. And the requirement from the Bureau of Ocean Management and the Bureau of Safety and Environmental Enforcement in the States required GE to conduct a root cause analysis on the reasonings for these blade failures, report that, and then for that to feed into and adjust the construction and operations plan to enable them to continue with the powering, let's say, of Vineyard Wind. So that RCA has been concluded now, and it has been established that the reason for those failures was poor quality control in the factory in Canada during the manufacturing of these blades, specifically when it comes to the application of the bonding material. Now, I don't know if you noticed it last week. I kind of hinted that I expected that bonding material was going to be the initial reason for this failure mode. The reason for that is because there's plenty of evidence of that across the other manufacturers as well. We've seen it pretty much across the board, to be honest. And as I mentioned again last week, I think it is going to become a more emerging trend in the coming probably months and certainly years of catastrophic blade failures due to manufacturing defects and lack of quality control. If we jump into that construction operations plan addendum for Vineyard Wind that has been released just this week, we can see it clearly in this introduction here, right? The RCA, let's highlight that for you. The RCA found that there was insufficient bonding at certain locations within the blade, which should have been detected at the manufacturing plant through inspection and quality control procedures. After reprocessing of the manufacturing data from the installed blades, additional blades with insufficient bonding were identified, leading to GE Verona's decision and BSEE's direction to remove all installed blades manufactured at the Gasp Canada plant. This addendum includes removal of activities at 22 locations, it doesn't give the locations, and pending further BSEE review, potential 2 additional locations where blades from other manufacturing plants were installed. Blade removal was not an activity specifically addressed in the CIP as part of the construction phase of the project. However, the removal is simply the reversal of the installation, which was addressed in COP Volume 1. We all know that pegging a blade off is the same pretty much as installing it, right? But very interesting there from the RCA that it is down to lack of or poor application of bonding materials in the factory. Now, interestingly enough, if we think about where we are, we're in 2025 and we're 25, 30, 35 years, nearly years down the road in terms of blade manufacturing, and we're still seeing these problems, which highlights the depth and breadth of the issue. I myself, as I said last week, have seen it in Vestas V90 blades, V112 blades, V117 blades, anything with the carbon spar has got the issue. We're seeing similar stuff on the Siemens 5X platform as well. So, more of an update on what we saw, what we spoke about last week, and a bit of validation on the expectation, and certainly something that you should be looking at going forward with your assets is how you're going to suitably manage those assets going forward in terms of understanding the asset condition and doing year-on-year monitoring, and really trying to get the most value from your inspection processes, right? And I think, to be totally honest, that's going to be more than just optical inspections. You need to find a more dynamic way of managing that. So that's the update to the blade situation, and specifically around GE Vernova today, because of that RCA finding. So we jump to our second story, which I don't know what's happened there. 2 seconds. There we go. So Just this week, the United Nations Environment Programme have released their Climate Technology Progress Report for 2024. I've had a good look through this. It's very solar and onshore oriented. It does talk about wind in some areas, but to be totally honest, the learnings from it are unilateral, right? In my view, they can be applied across all of the renewable energy sectors and are quite interesting. What we're going to do is just jump in and look at the key findings of each of the, let's say, chapters, sections of the report, right? So technology and adoption rates. Key messages: different regions are scaling their renewable energy capacity at different rates, influenced by each country's existing capacity and the urgency with which they aim to achieve tripling renewable energy capacity by 2030. So pretty self-explanatory, okay, but interesting. The more effort you put in, the better your curve of improvement is. Clear, but interesting with the decision that the states are making, right? And it's going to again position Europe to be again maintaining its leading position. Strong correlation between increased adoption rates and reduction in technology costs. Again, makes sense, right? If we're developing and we're learning all the time, which we should be reducing our technology costs. Which refers specifically to technologies that are similar and with more modular features and low complex design complexity. Advancing and deploying new technologies can boost renewable energy capacity. This is accompanied innovations in solar, wind, and energy storage technologies. Talks a lot about energy storage and in this report and development of the smart grid and how we can use that to really better utilize the energy that we produce from a renewables perspective. But also the report talks about how there needs to be probably more coupling of systems, so wind and solar together in both the onshore and offshore regions. Now, I believe Vattenfall are doing something with Hollands Kust in terms of they're going to have a floating solar asset as well. This is the direction that we need to go. Combine the grid connections, utilize them with intelligent, smart grid management, and get the most out of those grid connections as we possibly can. With the integration of energy storage solutions, electricity systems powered predominantly by renewables are rapidly becoming not only viable, but also increasingly cost competitive when compared to fossil fuel-based systems. Significant progress can be achieved in prioritising grid modernisation and storage technologies. Again, I think we need to see this right. Grid infrastructure across Europe is lacking, and it is where a lot of advancements can now be made, and there needs to be investment into it to move us forward in the right direction. And then finally, a fully integrated energy system, incorporated grid modernisation, advanced control mechanisms, and flexible generation and demand resources can significantly reduce the need for long-term, seasonal electricity shortage. Strategic deployment of storage remains crucial for grid stability and reliability. If you look at the storms across the UK in the last week, we can see how many assets in the Irish Sea and the UK onshore were curtailed because of the high wind and because the grid couldn't take it, right? Significant waste of energy, and what we should have been able to do is store that, locate it, move it around the grid in a more efficient manner. So certainly development in those areas. If we now jump forward to the feasibility assessment, key messages. Countries need to set more ambitious renewable energy targets in their updated nationally determined contributions. This involves aligning national policies to achieve the goal of tripling renewable energy capacity by 2030. Hence, institutional capacity, along with supportive policies, regulations and standards, need to be strengthened to improve overall feasibility for these technologies that scored the least. Interesting work being done in the UK from the new government in terms of supporting offshore wind and a drive for renewables. Globally, solar and wind power are highly feasible considering institutional, economic, technology, geophysical and socio-cultural dimensions. However, data caps still may be limiting regional expansion. Again, this links with that whole thing that I've been talking about over the last 3 weeks, is this collaboration piece needs to be increased significantly. There is a lot of control in the hands of the owners and operators, I believe, and the OEMs to do this, right? It kind of sits, the ball is in their court to make it happen. So hopefully that will be where we go. Several renewable energy technologies meet both mitigation and adaptation goals, while also being of benefit to the sustainable development goals. This relates to the electricity generation and energy storage and the resilience and reliability of these systems. Again, a lot of discussion regarding grid and storage, again, as it should be. And then finally, investment and finance. Key measures: renewable energy technologies, especially solar and wind technologies, have seen rapid cost reductions. China, OECD countries, and some emerging markets lead in financial commitments and renewable energy investments. Despite technological maturity and ample potential, renewable energy investment remains very limited in many developing countries and is not growing in other emerging economies. It is essential to implement policies and regulations that support renewable energy investments. This includes removing fossil fuel subsidies, setting up effective carbon pricing, and adjusting market structures to facilitate the deployment of renewable energy. Absolutely agree with this. Certainly we need to see policy change to enable renewables to become more effective in their contribution to the global energy contribution. The persistently high cost of capital in many developing countries is an important investment barrier. Holistic policy mixes that addressing the energy sector. The financial sector and the economy more broadly are needed to reduce these costs. Investment support, including through de-risking instruments by multilateral development banks and climate finance institutions, remains crucial for upscaling the deployment of renewable energy technologies in developing regions. Again, such a disappointment to see the move in which the US has made in the last few weeks. The current investor landscape is dominated by large private investors, revealing opportunities for alternative ownership structures that can support communities in generating broad societal benefits and fostering just transitions. So some interesting points there. Additionally, the report talks about some detail, again, in solar and hydro basis, but how organisations need to make sure they commit the right level of funding or budget towards operations and maintenance annually to make sure that assets are running as efficiently as they can and that costs aren't to be reduced reasonably within the O&M structures, okay? That almost needs to be ring-fenced, protected, in my opinion, ring-fenced and protected as much as you possibly can. If you're not investing and maintaining your assets suitably, then 3, 4, 5, 7 years down the road, we're only going to see issues. We saw that on a lot of offshore wind farms after reduced service campaigns during the COVID periods, right? And it was a bit of a regain. You saw it in the McKinsey benchmark, coming back to full operation and high levels of availability after the missed opportunities within COVID. So, as I say, the report, I will put the link up for the UN Environmental Programme Climate Technology Progress Report of 2024. So I'll put the links up that. I recommend have a good look. It is a good read. And then we have one more quick one to look at, and this is, again, I don't know why it's not working. Excuse me 2 seconds. Let's get it up. There we are. A good news story. Belfast Harbour plans £90 million upgrade to serve wind energy projects. So Belfast was used back in 2016, 17, 18, 19 for a lot of the Orsted, or Dong as it was back then, construction projects in the North Sea. But the harbour is now receiving a £90 million upgrade to the port to serve a wave of wind energy projects and cruise ships as part of a £300 million investment plan. So a deep water quay capable of supporting wind projects will be the largest part of an investment plan that will all see the construction of hundreds of homes near the site and the city centre. So great news for Belfast, great news for wind in the UK, and it's nice to have a port like that just over there in the Irish Sea that can facilitate large wind installation vessels, which perhaps gives other options for load-outs for O&M and things like this as well, because a lot of load-out has to happen in Denmark and that at the moment. So for wide-scale MCE projects, again, great options for more mobilisation possibilities. So that's great. Perfect. So that's Wins of the Week, episode 3. As I say, January's flying past really, really quickly. Focusing today again on an update with the blade situation, having a look at that UNEP report. Again, I recommend you go and have a look at it. There are, again, some cross-learnings that can be taken across the industry. But ultimately, I think a lot of this stuff that needs to be done now lies in the hands of the owners and operators. And it's down to them to look at ways to collaborate. We are here to help. If people want to look at that, give us a shout. But the proof is in the pudding, right? And I think it's for those guys and those owners, operators and OEMs to come together, sit at the table and work out how collectively they can do things better together. So we'll see you again next week. Take care. Have a good one. Stay safe. See you soon.